Hi, this is Professor Lusheen, and this is the first of three videos for Week 8, Safety 43, 683, Occupational Safety Management. We are now beginning a 6-week project called the Loss Run Data Analysis Project, or LRDA, and I'm redesigning, reformatting to try to make it a little bit easier for you. So please, I appreciate your patience as I try to make this a great learning experience for you that isn't as time consuming as previous work. So let's begin. So this is the window, I guess we'd call it, from our course Canvas page. The title of it is Semester Project Loss Run Data Analysis. These first two entries, this is the assignment. We'll look at it in a second. And then here's the data set that we're going to be using. So it's important that you know that you make sure you're reading this and you have a copy of it and you've broken it down. It also has 3 different rubrics, grading rubrics, so you can kind of see what's expected. And then here's the data set we'll be working with, okay? These are all reference documents to help you. So each week as I demonstrate how to do the analysis, so you'll be doing it yourself, but I'm going to show you how to do it each week. There'll be different times in which I'll do something and you should be able to, based on how I explained it, figure it out. I used to have students just figure it all out on their own. So be thankful that I'm demonstrating and you'll see what the answers are supposed to be. You may even find that I commit a mistake and then you can contact me and then I can go in and fix it. Yeah, that's basically the way it is. If you're not familiar with using MS Excel, Microsoft Excel, there are bonus videos here and a link to a YouTube channel. And so some of you have never used Excel, so it's probably a good idea in the first few weeks to take some time to go in and watch some of this stuff. If you're comfortable with Excel, you can just jump right into my videos. Okay, so the next video will start the analysis. There's 2 steps this week, so 2 videos. I also have information on how to create good charts, professional tables, how to write a case study report, which this is, how to write executive summary. So these are all things you're going to want to refer to as you prepare your final submissions. The final submissions, so there'll be weekly updates, and I've got, I'll show them each week, what's expected, what I want you to submit. I do not want you to submit your Excel every week. Let me repeat that. Write this down. I do not want you to submit your Excel each week. I want you to be able to do the work in Excel and then transfer your work to a Word document and either submit the Word document or a PDF. Let me say that another time. Do not submit your Excel each week. I'm not going to open it. If you submit your Excel, I'm not going to open it because it takes a long time to do it. I just have you guys submit it at the end. So in the 6th week, you submit your final Excel document. And it should be well organized, well labeled, so I can just walk through it and make sure that you did all the work. You'll be submitting your PowerPoint here. Everybody has to do a 5-minute presentation or record it. I guess we could do that too. I'd prefer we do it live in under 5 minutes. And that is basically the time you get in the real world to submit an idea. And then there'll be the final report. I'll talk about that in a moment. So make sure you are reading everything, watching everything. Yeah, this isn't approve the new iTunes, guidelines. Make sure you're reading everything, documenting so you know when things are due, what's expected, and you're submitting the right stuff, okay? Each week will be a step in the process. So I've built it so that we've got 5 weeks of analysis, and then the 6th week is the final submission. 7th week we do presentations. So each week you're going to be preparing results tables and figures. So it's really important that you are creating professional quality tables and figures, that you're properly labeling them, you're numbering them, and you're then also writing what you learned as you go through. Because each week is something learned that we're going to report to management. And then the submissions detail what I want to see. And then again, you'll submit everything at the very end. So there's everything right there. Here's the assignment itself. So we have different weighting for graduate students and undergraduate students. Undergrads, this is 30% of your grade. So basically, if you don't do this, the best you could do in the class is 70%. For grad students, if you don't do it, the best you could do is 60%. I did that on purpose because this is a lot of work. So therefore, I weighted it to try and reflect the amount of work you have to put into it. But this is also a multi-dimensional learning experience. Yeah, and something that most of my students use when they go out and practice. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So here's the basic description. So you are a new loss control specialist tasked with doing a comprehensive analysis of the loss run data set or the work comp claim data set. Your objectives are to evaluate data quality, assess the performance of the safety program, make prioritized recommendations for where and what the company should focus on, along with forecasted losses. So that's everything. And then it's being graded on your weekly progress, your final Excel, the presentation, and then what you submit for the paper. One thing I'm trying new this semester is that undergrads only have to write like a 3-page executive summary. You don't have to write the whole report. Graduate students, you still have to write a technical report and the executive summary. That's the big separation between the two, and the scores are meant to reflect that. Graduate students, if you do a really good job at developing the introduction section of your technical report and basically describe the work comp process, how the experience modification rating is calculated and the annual premiums are calculated, and build that into the narrative, you do not have to take the final exam. Undergrads, I used to offer that, but because the technical reports were just brutal to read, you guys have to take the final exam no matter what. Everyone is required to submit weekly updates. Everyone is required to submit a final Excel. Everyone's required to do the presentation. But if you have to record it, that's just what we have to do. I don't recommend that because it's good experience to present and receive immediate feedback and questions. Paper, there is no limit. It takes what it takes. But for the executive summary, I'm allowing 3 pages now. I used to only allow 2. I'm going to allow 3 now. And then you select the tables and figures you want to put into it. Again, what you're trying to do is convince management to invest into the safety program and then explain what you want to do with that investment. Here's a breakdown of what the technical report would be. Here's just a recommendation of the breakdown for the presentation. This is a unique data set, never been used before. So it's not like you can go out and find results, in order to bring it over. It's something I like. I enjoy doing this. I really love analyzing data. So I do a new one, but it's the same. I use the same technique. And what I'm basically doing is testing my technique and my logic. And so far, it's pretty solid. This data set contains 302 claims running from September 5th of 17 through September 18th of 2024. So is that 7 years, I believe? Yeah, I think. The work comp policy year is September 1st to August 30th. And so sometimes I do things both calendar and policy year. We'll probably just do everything policy year, I think, for this project. I may in my videos also do a calendar year because sometimes things are expressed from a calendar perspective. But I think our work, we may as well just use policy year. It's cleaner that way. Each policy year has a calculated experience modification rating, and here is the calculated experience modification rating, EMR, MOD, EMOD, whatever you want to call it. So for the from September 1st, 2023 through August 30th, 2024, which the MOD was a 0.92, which is below Unity. And so there was actually an 8% savings or return because of our 3-year experience being below expectation. Okay, and we'll get it more into this, but here's the equation. It's quite sophisticated. A lot of weird stuff goes. I haven't been able to completely dissect this yet, but I can do some more broader assessments, and I'll kind of show you some of that as we go through. So where do you get this data from? You get it from your comp carrier. Whoever is administering or servicing you to provide that insurance or comp insurance. They're the ones who they have the claims adjusters. They've got the investigators. They manage all that stuff, claims managers and things like that. So, when you report something, they set up a claim or an account, a folder, file, whatever you want to call it, and then that information, the claim number, is provided to the healthcare provider, whoever is helping the injured worker recover, and they bill the comp carrier directly, and the bills get paid. In addition to that, they connect with payroll so that if there is lost wages, that's going to the worker, and so on and so forth. And so they have all those numbers in this huge database, and then you ask for it. And then when you ask for a breakdown, they give you this dashboard. At least that's what it's called by the carrier. And you could see, you probably look at this, you're like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. Here's the thing. As a safety professional, this doesn't help me. It doesn't break it down in a way that I can use it to fully prioritize what I need to do at my site, especially when you have multiple sites like we do in this data set. So this is interesting, and I could create these, no problem, but this isn't helpful. About the only one that's really helpful is this right here, where it shows that workers from 0 to 1 year have the highest number of claims, which is to say, what's going on with our new hires? Are we not doing good enough new employee orientation? Do we need to consider like a journeyman or an apprentice approach to new employees? I don't know. Not sure. But that's about the one thing I think I could possibly use. Other than that, I'll come back. This is an old one. I just want to kind of show you what a carrier provides you. But unfortunately, it's nice for discussion, but it doesn't really help in our efforts. So what is the purpose of all this? I'm kind of breaking it down from what I'd said before. So in week 1, we're going to evaluate. So this week, we're going to evaluate the quality of the data set, doing descriptive statistics, and then we're going to do a distribution. Next week, we're going to evaluate outliers and their impact, and then also do annual trending based on policy year. I may do calendar year too. I don't know yet. The week after that, we're going to evaluate by site, cause, and possibly department job. We have to evaluate those variables to see if they're quality or not. That's week 3. Week 4. Week 4 is when it really gets time consuming. So check your work schedules in 4 weeks. It's going to be a busy week. It takes a lot of time. We're going to trend the priorities and forecast losses based on, the prior week. So it takes time, I'll tell you. That's the busiest week. Then we combine all those results that we've calculated and forecasted. We put them into a few tables at the end, and we compare our priority combos against overall estimates to show what we're covering. We include the outlier claims, in there to show that our estimates are conservative and that we should be able to meet or exceed. And we use 20 to 25% ROI on those final calculations. But in the real world now, if you guys are working and you're like, hey, I want to use this, what you do is you do your estimates like in this process, but then you would attempt to find the strategies or recommendations and the cost of those, and then you'd calculate your ROI. So it wouldn't be a backwards calculation of setting an ROI. It would be basically giving them the ROI based on what you need or what you're requesting. So let's look at a presentation that was created by a student a year ago, I think. This is a year ago's worth. And so this is similar to what you guys are going to be doing. So here is their figure 1. So this is the claim distribution. So we'll do something like this week in our second video. It'll be our third video, the second one after this. And it kind of shows the spread of data that a majority of the claims, and this is very typical, majority of the claims are in the lower end, and then there's a tick here of really expensive claims that account for over 50%. Okay, those are outliers, and then we will identify how many outliers, more expensive claims, we want to remove for our analysis. So here's the intro. So here's their descriptive. So we'll be creating something like this. It'd be nice if this was better looking. This could definitely be improved. But they've got a lot of the basics here. And then a breakdown of open, close, and reopen claims. Here are the outliers that they decided to remove. And I like to analyze the outliers as well. Simply because there's been such a big movement. It's called the SIFs, serious injury fatality. I don't fully believe it yet. And so I always look at the outliers to find out is there something unique about these claims that are sort of what do I want to say about this? That would not be otherwise considered through our current means of evaluating job hazards. I guess that I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but basically, are these unique or are these right in line with the more common, frequent, low severity? If they're the same, then that's interesting, right? Because we will then evaluate these based on, the lesser severe, more frequent things. If they're unique, then we need to consider and make sure that we're making extra effort to try to evaluate the work environment for these types of causes. Okay? I think that's the best way I'd want to say it. Here's the policy year analysis. They did it by policy year. We've got the claims, and they're going up no matter whether outliers are removed or included. And that's the thing, is each week, then after we remove outliers, we do it two different ways, one in, one out. And then here's the total paid. You can see how we look at it from an equation, from an R-square value, which is a corollary statistic, not a perfect one by any means, but we try to get a 0.7. I like 0.8, but I think the records say 0.7 is okay. Maybe we'll say 0.75. I'll look into that. I'll find a reference for that. As far as, is it a good forecast for the next year? And you see, this is the last year included, and they forecasted up to 2023. We'll be forecasting to 2025. Here are outliers included, outliers removed. These are ranking by site, by class code. That's policy class code, by the way, and we'll get into that week, break it all down. And then by cause, and we'll be looking at the Department of Workforce Development results here and comparing our averages to theirs. And then the risk priority number is percent count multiplied by total paid, and that's how we get our priorities and where we decide to cut it off, as far as how many priorities we want to include. So RPN is also an important thing that is used in the real world. Here is the week that takes so long, and that's the forecasting. We create this table, and we take annual averages, and we take forecasted estimated losses based on the figures. We come up with a bunch of numbers, and then based on the R-square values and some other information, we decide what we want to use to determine how much we estimate is going to be lost, how many claims we estimate are going to be lost. And so for this, she's showing site and class code and repetitive motion. And then we put it all together. And okay, did it for two of them. And then the final results is we'll have priorities. Here she has 6, 4 from one site, 2 from the other. Here are the class codes. Here's the cause. Here's the estimated loss for the following year. Here's the total, just for 6 things, that much. They decided to use a return on investment of 25%. We use these two numbers to kind of back calculate a requested investment. And these numbers do not include these outliers. And then there is a comparison of what these estimates are for the priorities against the company-wide estimated losses. And it kind of shows percentages. So this is the justification to management that you can invest. We should invest this amount of money because we're going to get it back, because this is very conservative. That's the whole idea. And then she says, what are we going to use the money for? Root cause analyses, work with the shop floor employees, and do safety roundtables. So good job. The student did a good job. I think she justified the investment of the $43,000 into this. So last thing I want to say before we look at some data is that I highly, highly recommend you use a PC. If you use an Apple computer or Mac or whatever you want to call it, Mac computers, their Excel is a little bit different. So as I go through and do the work, I'm not going to do it two different ways. I'm not going to do it both in Mac and PC. I'm using PC or Word or Windows. That's what I'm using. So you're going to have to, on your own, figure out the equivalency for the Mac. I tried using Macs early in my career. I was too frustrated. I just used straight up Microsoft Windows, Word, whatever you want to call it. Windows, yeah. So I do recommend a PC. I do recommend 2 screens. That's my setup. Because you can have one screen with your data, the other screen with the video, and you can follow along that way. It's also, I don't recommend using a laptop. You can. It's just, I've done this work on a laptop, and it sucks. Everything's just so small. I like to use a mouse and my keyboard and not have them combine. Make sure you're saving your work often. Don't try to complete everything and then save it. Save it as you're working, and I'll try to remind you in the demonstration videos. And also save it in 2 separate ways. I use Dropbox for all mine, and then I'll use desktop from time to time. Because if one becomes corrupted or lost, at least you have a backup. And then each week, save the work under a new name so that you have last week's work, and you understand what it is because you're using a designation. So that if the new work you're doing, if you're working on a different system or something crashes or something becomes corrupted, you can go back and start from the end of last week's progress versus having to rebuild it all over again. I think that if we were to survey all the students who have taken this class before, that would probably be their number one recommendation, because you can't always control that. And even for me too, if something was to crash, I can go back 1 week and then work from there versus having to start all over again. So that's my recommendation. Other tips is that the presentation is very important. If you just copy and paste directly from Excel in the basic Excel thing into your assignment, you're going to lose points. It doesn't look professional. You need to be able to design professional looking tables and figures. Make sure you are writing comments in Excel, and I am also asking for you to put it into your assignment. It's really important. And I think this semester, I haven't done this before. I did it at the end of last semester. I'm going to have a separate tab for all the results so it sort of accumulates, and that may help you understand the bigger picture as you go through. And then make sure you're asking questions. Don't ask each other. Too many students do that, and then they get way behind or messed up, and then it's just, it's chaos, bedlam. All right, I want to show you a few things. So first, I am tracking, and I will be sharing this later on. So these are the annual premiums. And what's interesting is in 2023, it reached over 1.1 million, but multiply that times 0.92, and that would be ultimately what they pay. So they saved, I guess I could figure it out right here, equal this amount times by 0.92. So what did they actually pay? This amount, how much did they save? What's 8%? $100,000. So $100,000 was saved because of diligent work comp claim management. And why did it jump so much from here to here? Because in the 3 years that went into it, it was, that would just be the EMR. It went up just because a lot of different reasons, but mostly, there was an expectation that it would go up. It may not have. We're fighting against that, but you can see here if the quarterly payments, that better be quarterly payments. It's already at 303. Pretty sure that's what it is, but I'll get into that later. I just wanted to show you, you can track that stuff too. Save, don't save. The next thing I want to show you is a reminder that we have to keep OSHA recordables separate from work comp. So here's a list of my submitted. The supervisor, when someone gets hurt, they fill out my online survey, and this gets sent to me, and I track this stuff. And I don't immediately say that it's OSHA recordable. I don't immediately say that it's a work comp claim. I need to investigate it. This is just the initial thing. And sometimes, the person needs to get treated if they need to get treated, okay? You can determine later whether you're going to bill work comp insurance or if it's going to be billed to the worker's health care, okay? Insurance. So, and here's the thing too, is that you can look on here and I've got a report only because it was denied by work comp later. So that changed some of my numbers. So it went from recordable to non-recordable. The reason for the denial was non-work related. But I've got some recordable things here. And here's the thing, I can find these in the comp stuff sometimes. There's some things that are here that are not there. There's some things that are there that are not here. And it's because of what OSHA requires for recordability, and it's also what work comp requires for what gets compensated and what doesn't. So that's why we want to keep those things separate. But we can find them. So there is overlap in the data sets. I prefer the work comp because I have an estimation of what it costs to get the person back to work, and I can then use a collection and trend of that data to make recommendations to management, not only what we should be focusing on and what might work, but how much we're saving if nothing's done. Because the trends, I believe that, I take a systems approach, a work system approach, that if things are left as is, bad things are going to occur, or negative things are going to occur. And only through corrective action can I mitigate or affect that outcome. So these are my raw data that would be OSHA recordable stuff. And then, let's see, bring it up here. Here's our loss run data. So this is the actual data set we'll be working with. And so some of these things you see here would also be found in my other recording. Because my recordings are so comprehensive, I'd find them in both places. But if it was just OSHA recordability, there would be things here that would not be found in, say on an OSHA 300 or 300A. Let's just say OSHA 300 log, okay? So that's really everything I wanted to cover here. So in the next video, we're going to start looking at this data set. We're going to do the first step of analysis, and we'll also look at what's required for week 1. And then I'll do a third video in which we'll do the second step, and again, interpret it and things like that. Make sure you're always watching these videos. Ask me questions if you're confused.